Welcome back everyone to another episode of Food with Victor. Today we're going to be cooking pork knuckle with root mash. This is a very traditional Swedish dish, or as we say, Husmankost. Basically it translates to traditional home-cooked food. This is really old school, sturdy dish that's probably not even many young Swedes have cooked. And the star of this dish, the pork knuckle. I'm going to try to simplify this dish a bit. We're going to boil the pork knuckle with some vegetables to create the broth. And with that broth, we're going to put all the root vegetables inside of that broth and making a mash out of that. First, we're going to simmer the pork knuckle to clean it up a bit. And when choosing your pork knuckle, choose the one that has lots of meat but still has the skin on and lots of fat. And a good tip here is to add the pork knuckle to the pot first and then add the water, or else you might end up as me to need to remove the water and then add it in again. This is a dish that takes lots of time, so make sure to prepare and work parallel with the pork knuckle boiling. Here I'm preparing a bowl with all the vegetables needed to create the pork broth. And as you can see here, I'm only using the green part of the leek. And as I said in the beginning, this is a really Swedish recipe. And one of the reasons is this vegetable. It's called Swedish turnip. And sometimes it's hard to find outside Sweden, but if it's possible, try to find it. The next best thing here is to use a regular potato mash. And the Swedish turnip is a hard vegetable with kind of strong peppery flavor and smell. And I'm chopping up here to speed up the process for the mash. And straight from a Spirited Away scene, here is the pork knuckle boiled and ready. As I said before, this recipe takes quite a long time, so for that reason I'm using here a pressure cooker. It's perfectly fine to use a regular pot and boil it that way, but it takes just much longer time. And time here to drop in all the vegetables to create the pork broth. And don't forget to add the water as well. And as I said, this is really old school recipe, so we're not using that much of a seasoning, but we're using the 3 ground pillars of Swedish Husmankost. It's salt, white pepper and allspice. And I'm setting my pressure cooker on 1 hour and 10 minutes. If you're boiling this in a regular pot, around 3 hours, give or take, would be fine then. And now it's time to prepare for the root mash. We're chopping up all the root vegetables to just speed up the boiling or mashing process. And as I talked about before, we're boiling the pork knuckle here together with some of the vegetables and spices to create a deep and rich pork broth. And with that pork broth, we're gonna boil our root mash. And once your pressure cooker is ready, time to release the steam and see the result. And as you can see here, the pork knuckle is full of the bones tender, and we have created a deep and rich pork broth. Now it's time to remove the pork knuckle and let it cool down a bit, and also add in the root vegetables to start creating the root mash. Yeah, and even I agree here, it doesn't look that beautiful, but just let it cool for a bit and it will create some more color and look more tasty. And here we have it, the pork broth for the root mash. Once all the root vegetables is in the pot, you stir it around a little bit to create the even boil. And I'm setting the pressure cooker here for 20 minutes. And same process here, release the steam. And here we can clearly see how much of the beautiful flavor from the pork knuckle the root vegetable has sucked up while they've been boiling in it. And now it's stomping, mashing, or call it what you want. We're gonna mash up all the vegetables. And don't forget to add a generous knob of butter. And we're going for kind of rough, sturdy mash. You still want to have some bigger pieces left there to chew. This is one of the dishes that has very few ingredients and pretty much very simple flavors as well, but once you help them work together, it creates magic. And when it comes to the texture to the pork knuckle, you still want to have some resistance, but it should be fall off the bones tender. And I know a lot of Swedes were served a bad version of this in school, but I assure you, if you try to cook this again, you will fall in love with it. And don't forget to add a generous knob of mustard. This ties everything all together, and without the mustard, it's not a complete dish. And there we have it, Swedish turnip root mash with pork knuckle and a generous amount of mustard. And as I said, you want to have some resistance to the pork knuckle. And we do, but it's still really tender. But first I'm gonna try to taste the root mash by itself. And as you can see, it's wonderful. Deep with the pork broth infused flavor, and everything together creates magic. If you want to have more Swedish traditional food on this channel, leave a like and comment down below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Take care and see you in the next one.